Let's try some fucking music. Might be a little loud. What's up, everybody? What's up, Maninder? All right. So I'm trying to multitask tonight. I'm trying to answer emails from subscribers and stuff like that. Wow. So we'll see if I can multitask tonight. Yeah, dude, I just heard this the other day. Like apparently going in and taking 50 Cent songs and doing like to like rock or all sorts of things. And I heard this one. This one is "Many Men" by Super Black. I dig the vocals on this stuff. All right, you know what we're gonna do? Just so I can say that I did multitask, we're gonna answer one email in here. Well, luckily it's not piracy because it's on Spotify, baby. And that's how you know it's legit. All right, all right. We're seriously we're gonna answer one email tonight. All right, we're gonna bear with me. We're gonna do this. All right. And either I appreciate that, brother. Pretty sure I have no acting skills whatsoever. All right, all right. So we're answering an email from fucking Cameron. Oh man, some Celine Dion. Follow up that by that from that rock. That's the way to go. Lengthy question, but curious hasn't gotten me yet. Thanos, hit us with your question, brother. All right, it's official. We answered one email. We are officially some multitasking sons of bitches. I appreciate you, everybody joining. Um, if you guys did see this weekend, my dog got sick. Well, we found out um, I'm like, my brain is fried tonight. Yeah, she got diagnosed with lymphoma, so we've had to adjust some things this weekend. But I still wanted to make sure that I got in, even if it was a little bit, to do live on Sunday because that's kind of what I've scheduled to myself. That's what we're doing every single Sunday, regardless. So I appreciate everybody. Dennis asks, "What do we? Where? All right, you know, maybe. Let's turn this down. All right. Would it make sense to drop high altitude projectiles for high damage, low fallout on large bases? Question from Sci-Fi World Build. Let's think about that. If you're dropping high altitude projectiles, are you talking about like from a sort of like a space platform? Like, would you be dropping like sort of like kinetic strikes from a space? Okay. So it is my understanding that even kinetic strikes will have an extremely large impact. That they're also measured in megatons in their power. So um, there's a whole thing about this about kinetic strikes from space platforms. They've actually done a lot of this scientific work on this already, but they actually will from that altitude, and they would actually cause a lot more damage than people think they would, to the point where they actually measure it in megatons. Bob the Great, how's the steroids doing for you? I wouldn't know, brother. I've actually never been on steroids, which is one of the reasons why it took me 20 years, maybe not exactly 20 years, but about 20 years to build this body, because I did it naturally, which is why it takes so long. If I'd done this steroids, I'd probably look like this when I was 25, but unfortunately, I did not. Nor am I, obviously, at this point. Why would I? It only endangers your health. So, Randy Winkler, what's up, man? How you doing, brother? Grasshopper, hope your dog gets better. I just had to put both my dogs down at the same time, dude. That's horrible, man. Yeah, like it's just one of those things. I was just talking to a friend about this today about how you know dogs provide this unconditional love for us, and it's like this almost like life's cruelty, or maybe some life lesson that we're supposed to learn from it, that one of the creatures in this world that can love us unconditionally has like 1/10 our lifespan. So I always try to think about that. She's a big part of my life, but I'm the biggest part of her life. So on the days where I'm tired and I don't necessarily want to do things, I always try to think about like she only has such a short life. So, but the good news is she doesn't have metastasis. I always struggle with that. It's spelled like metastasis, right? But anyways, it's if the cancer cells have gotten into the organs, which they've not. So the best part about that is because they haven't gotten into the organs, that means she's a great candidate for chemotherapy. And chemotherapy has a really is very effective against lymphoma. So she actually has a pretty good chance of putting this in a remission. We just have to get a hold of all the oncology places tomorrow, and hopefully we get her treated as soon as possible, and then we're in. So Grasshopper, once again, I feel your pain, brother. Dexter, dude, I love that show. I remember when Dexter came out, dude. That show was like there was nothing like it. I feel like he was like one of the first like anti-heroes in TV shows. That show was awesome. Yeah, yeah. Trust me, like I've met a lot of people who do steroids, but like it's you can when you do it naturally, it definitely takes a lot longer. And to be honest, I probably have had a lot of pitfalls along the way, just because, you know, there's been some, I've tried everything. I've tried CrossFit. I did Olympic lifting. I did straight bodybuilding, hypertrophy. I did all sorts of things. But I honestly, in the last year, I think partly because of a lot of the science that we understand about health and physical training has really just it's gotten to a whole nother level where we basically understand how things work much better. And it's allowed me to take that research and basically what is the top of everything that's known right now, and apply that to my working out. And I've seen huge gains, especially in the last year. Easily, I'm 40 years old, about to turn 41, and I'm easily in the best shape of my life. And I'm probably the strongest I've ever been, too. Um, which Jonesy? What do you mean both at the same time? Elaborate. Which what did maybe I missed what you were talking about? Uh, which parents' genes are more significant in IQ? Which race currently scores lower? All right. Dogs are the greatest. Thanos. Dogs are the greatest things. The greatest beings. They live life to their fullest, and knowing is so short. Yeah, it sucks. You know that it goes with anything in life. Um, everything ends, and everybody that you've ever loved will eventually pass away. You know, and learning how to deal with grief is a big part of life. And like my parents died pretty early in my life. My mother died when I was 15. My father died a number of years later. All my grandparents are dead. Like my sister's the oldest living member of my family. You know, but that's life, right? You know, everybody eventually passes away. Everybody you've ever loved, and you know, grief is a sign that you love something. So you know, what are we gonna do? Not love things? Not go through life? You're not gonna do that. You know, that's a part of life. It's the ups and the downs. You know, so you have to experience both sides of that because that's the beauty of life. Yeah, no, Benjamin, that's true. Like for example, Callie was actually a rescue from Baltimore City, and she was living on the streets when I found her. And I found her when she was 2 years old, and she had just had puppies on the streets. So I like to think that for the last 9 years, I've given her a great life. But if everything works out with her treatment, um, hopefully we'll give her a couple more years. So. Oh, what is the name of the dude who played Dexter? Because I feel like every time I do a stream, someone always says I look like Dexter. Michael C. Hall. I love that show. That show was awesome. Thoughts on Argatha? What's Argatha? Is that a sci-fi series? Dexter is overrated. Well, the first couple seasons, especially when it first came out, there was nothing like that show. Jack Lyons, I did steroids for 8 years and my markers are on point. Had a scare with dark and chunky urine. Hey, as long as you own up to it and you understand the risks, you know, you can do whatever you want with your body. You know, you can definitely get a lot of gains from it, you know. But as you can see from people like The Rock and other people like that who've been on it most of their lives and now they're off of it, it's really hard to keep that level to that size because you know it took steroids to get it, and it's really hard. Like once you come off of it, you'll kind of deflate, you know. So just be careful, man. How do I raise my testosterone levels? I feel just drained. Well, one thing that you can do is you can go to a doctor and then get your blood taken, and you can see where your testosterone levels are at. And then from there, especially if you're below, you know, where you're supposed to be at your age, you can get prescribed some therapy, some TRT or something like that. Um, I get my blood tested all the time. Unfortunately, my testosterone is not low enough for me to get any sort of supplement, so I'm completely all natural in every single way. So, okay, I know steroids are just the quick and easy, but sometimes the shortest paths are the most deadly. Yep, that's true. You know, almost everything, not always, but the general rule is that if there's a shortcut, you know, there's usually some sort of a side effect. There's a side effect to everything. Like, for example, like medicine, right? You know, it helps with certain things, but there isn't anything that you introduce your body that changes something that doesn't have an effect somewhere else. Yeah. Kyle, what's up, man? Giga Chad. Yeah, I wish. Trend kills your insides and you get addicted. Absolutely, David. I just focus on macros, sleep, and rest. Yeah, like you can get majority of everything that you need to do, and you're not going to have a lot of the side effects if you just concentrate on the basics, which is one, especially if you're trying to like tone up, is but first and foremost is yeah your protein. You want your macros, but it's so easy to track your calories nowadays, right? Like even you don't have to like there's so many apps and everything like that, but even just have a general idea of what you're doing. And then if you're ingesting enough protein, I cannot stress how much protein is important because as I remember, your body, actually the more protein, the more you're actually going to raise your BMR because protein is harder, takes more energy to burn. So actually, if you're getting your protein goals, which you get high enough, you're actually going to burn more calories because your body needs to essentially work harder to burn protein. So it has multitude of effects, not only to help you build muscle, help you to recover quicker, but it also helps you to burn off, that fat as well. So it just if you just your protein, I'm just telling you, your macros, everything like that, but protein is so important. And then if you want to lose any further weight, just understand your calories. And it's that simple. It really is. Let's see out of here. What is your favorite southern state by Morris? So when I went to flight school for the Army, I went to Alabama. Um, and to be honest, I'd never been to that part of the South, and I grew up in other parts of the United States, so I had a lot of, you know, stereotypes, and I was pleasantly surprised that Alabama is like one of people there are just so ridiculously nice. But I also lived close to the Panhandle of Florida. It was kind of like Fort Rucker is in the like lower Alabama area, kind of like the Alabama Florida line. And so I got to spend a lot of time in the Panhandle every weekend. So I like Florida. It's me, Nightmare. Can you say soy Batman? Soy Batman. All right. The end comes for everyone. The worst, the death is forgetting. Yeah, which is unfortunate because, you know, even if you're an extremely influential person and your family loves you, unfortunately, unless you're either notorious or extremely famous for something, right? Everybody's gonna forget your name, in like 3 generations. So I think about that. I remember it was like Chris Williamson was talking about this, and I think he even posted this video about, you know, we're so concerned about what other people think, and in a few years, nobody's gonna even know our name. So why are we letting that hold us back? So I try to think about that when every time I'm about to do something, and I'm like, oh, what are people gonna think? Screw it. Who cares? And besides, most people aren't actually even really thinking about you. Most people are not thinking about anything outside of what's past their own nose. So don't worry, just do what you've got to do. Jim Borghini, how old are you? I am 40. I am going to turn 41 in less than a month. If I blur my eyes, you are Dexter. Man, you guys are really on this whole Dexter thing. You know, Michael C. Hall's pretty good looking dude, so I can't really. If you guys were thinking I looks like somebody who's like not like one successful actor, or someone who's probably not on the attractive side, you know, maybe might be offended. Nah, either way, I wouldn't be offended. Screw it, I don't give a shit. Let's see. I think you look like Damian Lewis, to be honest. All right, now let's look up who Damian Lewis is. You know what's funny? You know who I actually used to get? Damian Lewis. Oh, what's his name in fucking Band of Brothers? Major Winners. The fucking Damian Lewis. Yeah. Most of the people in my family are actually redheads. Like my older brother is a redhead. Um, so no, but you know who I actually used to get? Uh, who would say and I honestly never got it, but people used to say all the time that I looked like. Oh, you know what? Now I have to look at the movie. It's the original Spider-Man, and it's the one who plays his best friend. Why can I not think of his name? I'm gonna pull it up. James Franco. For some reason, I think my entire life, when people say that I have a celebrity super lookalike, people would say James Franco, and I never, still to this day, I still don't understand. Like Michael C. Hall, I can understand, and Damian Lewis, yeah. My eyebrows are not as thin as his ours, and I do have some red tendencies. Like you guys haven't seen my full beard, but when my beard gets full, it's red. Do you have COVID-19? I did get COVID once. Yeah, grief makes a person grateful after a while. Yeah. What's the interesting thing about grief is when you actually end a relationship, right? Even if it's like someone you were dating or even a friendship, like that is the loss of somebody who is in your life that's no longer going to be, which is the same as a death. So you grieve the end of those relationships as well. But the interesting thing is, a lot of times when you end a relationship with someone who's still alive, it's even harder because at least when someone dies, you don't have a choice, right? And there's some solace in that. But when you choose to end or to cut somebody out of your life who's a big part, like that's almost harder because there's a choice. Like you could go back to it. You miss them. You could reach out again, but you have to be strong. And so a lot of times it's actually even harder. So I find that interesting. And to be honest, I've experienced that. Like I've experienced a lot of people in my family have died, a lot of friends, but definitely ending relationships with people who you used to love or be a big part of because you have to, you need to. I feel like is one of the hardest things in the world, and you have to grieve those relationships as well. So my dogs have skin diseases, condition rash that never goes away, and one was blind. You know, it's just it sucks. With animals, you have to give them the best care that you can, and but honestly, they're unless they're in pain, dogs are just happy to be alive. And you just treat them well, and that's the biggest thing. Just treat them because look, they give you unconditional love, and they look to us and nothing like I think everybody understands like the concept of John Wick, a guy who goes on a murdering spree because of somebody killed a dog. Like I think all dog owners can understand that. I have a question: invented liquid soap and why? Seriously, if they would, bro, I like liquid soap. I don't know what you're talking about. I lifted for 40 years and never took tests. Just focused on my diet. Yeah, Lifter Dave 1964. I'm the exact same. It just takes longer, right? But I like the fact that I've been all natural. Like I posted a picture, it's even on one of the shorts of what I looked like when I was 30, right? And I'm way more cut. I'm a lot bigger. But the thing is when I was 30, I thought it was impressive shape. Well, I was in pretty impressive shape. I was doing a lot of Olympic lifting back then, but like I could never get my body down to the way I wanted to look. And it's crazy. It's taken me this long to finally get there. But a lot of that has to be with what we understand about calories, deficits, and stuff like that. And, we used to demonize carbs like really badly. A lot of that stuff has been kind of sorted out, and now we have a better understanding. And I do attribute to a lot of the current health sciences or what the current science is within, working out and fitness to my recent success over the last year of finally getting the body that I finally wanted to. And obviously, I still have ways to go because I still want to improve. But does my cousin look like the pot of greed? I have no idea, bro. Straight or not? No, I'm straight, bro. Bro, you look like Dexter. Yep, he said that. What's up from Washington State? Troy Tusley. Troy, I actually don't know if you know this, but I actually went to middle school, high school, and college in Washington State. I lived in just south of Tacoma in a town called Lakewood. My dad was stationed at well, he retired at Fort Lewis McChord. Ola Art, Ola from the Pacific Northwest. As I was just explaining, I'm from that area, so the poem Osmite Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I don't think I know that one. The Bay Harbor Butcher for sure. All right. So I guess I look like Dexter. Feel free to laugh at that joke. Robert Ryder, guess what? What's up, bro? In 100 years, somebody will own your home, your stuff. You'll be gone, and nobody will remember. Sad facts. No, that's true, man. Every house that you live in, somebody else is gonna live in it. Topher Grace. Why does that sound familiar? I know. Topher Grace. The dude from that '70s show? I don't see it. Maybe. Well, plus he's a skinny little bitch. Granted, I was skinny in college, like when I played soccer in college, but once I joined the army, I met a dude who basically convinced me that chicks dig big, big buff guys, which is, to be honest, it's a complete utter lie because 99% of all the compliments I've ever gotten since I ever started working out are come from guys. But, it is what it is. Yeah, Knight. See, I don't see Franco either, brother. I just like it's one like I got it so much, like in my 20s, and I never understood it. Doherty, are you talking about that little TikTok little fucking douche dude that fucking or is it somebody else? Who's Doherty? Because I'm thinking of Jack Doherty, and he's like that like unless you're talking about Matt Doherty. You look like Matt Damon and Bad Flag if they had a child. They're not the worst looking people in the world, so I don't hate it. I see a little Ethan Hawke. You know what's funny? I've actually gotten Ethan Hawke before. BSK, are you circumcised? We really asking about that? I'm Roman Catholic, so I'll let you figure that out. I grew up in a pretty devout, religious Roman Catholic family. Ethan Hawke, if he turned to meth instead of acting, what is that supposed to mean? Do I look like someone's been on meth, bro? How many years did you smoke cigarettes? I actually don't smoke cigarettes. I'll occasionally smoke a cigar, but absolutely, Sam Goat. So your grandpa? Happy birthday, Nick Gers. Appreciate you and your grandson Sam Goat. Appreciate you all. Happy birthday, brother. All right. You guys keep repeating, spamming stuff. I'm gonna block you. All right. We don't need to be listening to this right now. All right. Organic Machine D Dean 333. Could you give me some life advice? I'm 26. What do you got? Anything specific, or you just want me to give you like my top three things for being a guy in their 20s? BSKA, you don't look, we're all here to share our knowledge with each other. And if someone wants to ask a question, let them ask a question. Especially, I think you're the one who asked the circumstances question, circumcision. So keep it up, you know, keep saying stupid shit. Organic Machine, don't listen to fucking BSK. Who is the most successful person you know in real life? There are so many people that I know that are successful and extremely in a lot of different areas, you know? So it depends. Business, life. Um, I actually had a mentor back in my tier one unit. He was like my free fall instructor. He was like my mentor in a lot of different ways. Like, and I kind of I looked up at him in like so many different aspects of his life. I think that guy has one of the few people who have navigated all the pitfalls of being in tier one for majority of his life, and he was able to make it through and have a really good personal relationship and an amazing wife, and against all odds, completely honest. But then, I also know a couple people who are extremely successful businessmen, worth probably like $600-700 million, and they just buying up companies, selling them here, and dudes just never stop. And a lot of successful people in the polo world too, both on the patron side of things and the polo professional side of things. Yeah, organic machine, whatever you want to ask. Just gonna have a conversation, but your chat says I shouldn't ask for it. Dude, don't listen to them. Just whatever you want to ask. All right. All right, we are going to start banning people. Man with a plan. I think that is a question for a recruiter. So, if you want to talk to a National Guard SF guy, send me an email. It's in my profile. I'll get you in contact with somebody. But I guarantee you, if you are in the middle of you know, that type of charge, I'm pretty sure that you'd have to wait until that got cleared up. So, all right. Let's get rid of some people. Man, you guys really do not listen to some of the terms and conditions as when it comes to this channel. All right. All right. All right, organic machine. Okay, can I get advice for a man in the mid 20s, or what do you wish me to know if you were my age? It's a great question. I think that your 20s is the time that you just need to really just go out and do things and put your head down and just go work, right? Don't worry about being in relationships or anything like that. And don't worry about what anybody thinks. Just go out there and just go do stuff. Whatever your career, like that's the prime of your life when it comes to like really getting it done, whether it's like, climbing, whatever career, going to the military and doing some, you know, amazing stuff that, where you are going to be away from your family. It's going to be really hard for you to have relationships. Like, that's the time to do it, is your 20s. Don't worry about, getting married or anything like that, because like the guys who just like buckle down and just do the work, right? In their 20s, those are the guys who like are so successful later in life, and that's going to set you up so big. And then also, guys, if you're not in shape in your 20s, like it's never going to be easier than it is in your 20s. Like if you want decide like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it in my 30s, like you're just making it harder. Like get in shape in your 20s and it's so much easier than to maintain and just to build from there. Like I know that one of the things that I think that I did is, I started worrying about like getting in these relationships and stuff and just, and I was pretty focused, but then I would stray a little bit and I'd lose focus. And I wish I'd been even more focused than I was. Um, so, Organic Machine, I hope that if I think of anything else, it would be, I'll mention it, but yeah, just work your ass off and be in shape. And, don't pick your head up until your 30s. I'm going to be honest. I wish I had done that. And I sort of did because I really, I went to a tier one unit when I was 26. So I didn't pick my head up until I was like 32, 33. But there was definitely some things I could have done in there better. Yeah. Let me just double check I didn't miss anything. Fever Dream, National Guard has SF. Yes. Actually, SF is the only special operations unit in any of the National Guards. So, actually, you guys, I made a whole video about this. And if you guys are interested, uh, send me an email and I can get you. I have the full contact list for all the distros for all the National Guard SF recruiters. They gave it to me to hand out. So if you guys ever need it, just get in contact with me. We'll figure out whoever you're the closest to, and I'll get you in contact with those National Guard SF recruiters. Favorite MRE? Honestly, I would eat everything. You know, be able to eat some of the like, God, I can't even remember what some of them were, but I would eat like the ones that even people like didn't actually even want. So because I pretty much eat anything. I don't care. I hear there's a severe shortage of welders at the shipyards. Not easy work, but it pays pretty good. Almost all the trade school jobs are because there's a shortage in like everything, electricians, plumbers, definitely welding. All those jobs are paying higher, and the amount of education you have to get to the amount of pay that you can get from these jobs is better than a lot of jobs that you can even try to do in college. So, all right. Growing Machine. I'm glad you said that because I've been lacking on being fit and I had a lot that's happened in the past 5 years, a couple injuries, and been out of the loop, working for a little, and advice for getting back into it. Look, everybody gets out of it. Everybody has setbacks. And I talked about this in one of my videos. I went into a deep depression when I was in flight school, and this was during COVID. And for the first time in my life, I didn't go to the gym for 6 months. So, mind you, right before I left the gym, I was doing like 5 or 6 muscle ups at a time. Like, that's kind of like the level. And when I left the gym for 6 months, when I came back, I went the first day back in the gym, I tried to do like 2 pull ups. And I remember how much like my bones were hurting just doing 2 pull ups. And that's all I could do. So, everybody has setbacks, you know? So, let me think about this. So everybody has setbacks. So don't be discouraged if that happens to you. Just every single day, just try to be better. Just put in the work and you'll get back to it. And then you'll even exceed. And if you're dealing with injuries, you have to make sure that you're doing it in a way, you make sure you recover. You do a decent amount to recover whatever you may injury from, because the worst thing that you can do is try to get back into something, and work out whatever may aggravate the injury again, is re-injuring something. It can only make that worse, right? So you just have to be careful. And there are ways, physical therapy, different things like that. They can help you to understand the limitations and what's the best way for you to rebuild that strength so you don't re-injure that type of stuff. So that's very important. But yeah, like, you just have to, do the work, and you'll eventually get back into it, man. We've all been there. I've been there. If you're fat and you need to lose weight, go on a water fast. Ryan Smith, to be honest, I don't agree with this. There's different types of fasting, and there's different like advantages to different fasting. But if you want to lose weight, look, anything you want to do, and there's like a fast version of it. It's like almost with anything that's a shortcut. There's going to be, some downsides to it. You know, just try not to be in a situation where you have to lose weight fast, right? So, just be in a calorie deficit, and just stay on top of your eating, and you won't have to deal with this. So, Jean Pierre, $5. Oh, dude, you fucking rock, brother. Let me fucking. What did you enjoy more, playing in the dirt as enlisted or flying through the fog as an officer? To be honest, I enjoyed my time probably in SOF better. Um, for the little time I did get to fly, um, you know, flying at low level, hovering, like, that's the best part. But when you get to like altitude, especially in helicopters, it's kind of boring, you know, and they don't fly very fast, and they're horrible at fuel. So I would definitely say that my 13 years in the soft community, especially my time in the unit, were much more enjoyable. Gimme, sir, did you ever marry or have any children? No. I've never been married, and I don't have any children that I know of. Mr. 762 Sky, what's up, brother? Yeah, I also dealt organic machine. Yes, I also dealt with depression injuries at the same time. Didn't help. I was consistently working out from like 12 to 23. Um, yeah, that's definitely, luckily we know more about like when you're working out from a younger age, like before you fully grow. There's a way to fitness has to be done in a certain way so you don't injure yourself or you don't compress your growth plates and you stunt your growth, because there's two major ways to really stunt your growth growing up, and that's gymnastics and heavy weightlifting, right? Like you'll notice like a lot of like your, especially back in the 90s and 2000s, a lot of guys that who used to like heavy weightlift in high school, they're all fucking short. In gymnastics too, you know, there's a reason for that, because that type of stuff compresses growth plates and you literally can stunt your growth. So, but you know, you can also injure yourself and that causes issues later on. Like before I really understand what I was doing, I actually separated my AC joint in my right shoulder doing bench press, because I used to bench like all the way up here, and I just eventually injured it. And it wasn't until like years later when I finally figured out how to do the right form did I finally could bench again. Um, so, and this is my advice to anybody when it comes to working out. Forget what weight is on there. Like ego lifting will only get you hurt. Form over function, right? So always be doing the right form. If you're doing the right form, your risk of injury drops significantly. Um, yeah, and then look, everybody deals with depression, you know, and as guys, you know, especially if you're in like one of these hyper masculine communities, they tell you to suck it up, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. No, dude, that's wrong. Like talk about it. Like there's nothing wrong with admitting that like, hey, you're struggling, you're going through some stuff right now, right? Obviously do the work, you know, every single day to like work on it, but like, you know, be honest, identify what you're going through, you know, but then also do the work that you need to do to get out of it, you know, or to, you know, make your life better. And, you know, I struggled with that. Like the first time I ever went into depression, I'd never been in depression my entire life. And it crushed me because I'd never dealt with it before. You know, it took me a much longer than I care to admit to finally pull myself out of that, because I wallowed in some self pity for a really long time, you know, but that also was its own learning lesson. Savan Chekla, God bless you, my brother. God bless you. What is the best SF career right now for those seeking combat, sir? Are you talking about like in special forces, like in the Green Berets? Or are you talking about like SOF, like the general special operations community? Specify what you're talking about. Organic Machine 333. Been trying to smart again. Been trying to smart again, small with some calisthenics by getting consistent again. But after having setbacks, it hasn't been easy, I'll be honest. Yeah, when I got back into the gym after that 6 months away, it definitely did not make me want to go back in the next day. But that's the only way you're going to get better. And you just got to remember that. Just take it one day at a time. Almost everything, especially that sucks, just take it one day at a time. Just try to be 1% better than you were. Don't worry about where you were 6 months ago or years down the road when you were better. Because look, everybody goes through these ups and downs. Don't worry about that. Just worry about what's in front of you. You know, try not to live with those regrets. You know, remember, we'll take the lessons from it, but just move on, right? Every single day, you take it day by day, you will get better. I promise you. Uh, Zach Lambert, I knew him. I am Ashara. Hey, Stoke, man. I have a pickup line for you, my man. All right, hit us with that pickup line. But helicopters are fun to jump out of. I completely agree. Um, the cool thing, especially if you're doing military free fall, is that they're going slower, so you have less relative air. So when you jump out, you actually have to dive out into um, a deeper dive in order to catch the relative air because there isn't as much. If you don't, if you try to jump out how you would jump out of like the ramp of like a C-130 or C-17, you're going to fail your jump. You're going to go into a ball of shit. So when you jump out of a helicopter, the cool thing is you basically kind of go into a nosedive in order to catch the relative air when you're doing a skydive. WP, how many tier one bros can't get a real job? Apparently 99%. Well, I don't know where you found that statistic, brother, because, if there's any group of dudes who are definitely getting jobs, it's the tier one guys. I have a job coming out of the military, so, you know, just because people get on YouTube and would, for whatever reason, want to share, whether they're life lessons, some of these guys are out here showing war stories, whatever, but I'm over here just trying to do life lessons and help people, not fall into the pitfalls that I have fallen into and maybe take some of the successes that I've had and just go from there. But, all you, brother. I didn't get into heavy weightlifting until 16, 17. Yeah, I didn't get into heavy weightlifting until I was like 20 or 21. So, to be honest, it's probably a good thing because, like I said, you can stunt your growth if you're not doing it properly. Are you Hopper from Stranger Things? I don't think I'm that fat or that old yet. I don't know how old he is. But Hopper was cool, I will be honest. Yeah, organic machine, yeah. Because for when I got into my state of depression, the longer I avoided it and the things. So I think I've talked about this before. Um, I coped with video games. I went into this huge. I used to be like a gamer in high school, but I wasn't really ever a gamer adult. So during those like months, it was during COVID, and I was like in between flight classes. I played so much fucking video games. I was playing League of Legends. Maybe that contributed to my level of depression. And if you guys know, you know. But the longer that I pushed it aside and didn't actually confront it, I only made the depression worse, and I made the episode longer. So, the longer that you sit in and you don't do anything about it, the longer you're going to be there, and the worse it's going to get. So, you know, and then once I finally was like, hey, I'm going to do something about it, and I just took it day by day, and I eventually crawled myself out of that hole that I put myself in. RZ, general community. So it depends what you want to do, right? It's if you want to get, if your goal, so so if I remember correctly, your question was like to get into combat, right? Well, unfortunately, we're not in a major conflict right now. So, you know, it's really hard to be in a specific soft job where you're going to see combat. Obviously, if anything happens, typically the tier one units typically are the first one assigned, because they want the highest level people to handle these things so they don't become worse issues. Anything lower would probably require some sort of a conflict. So it's really hard to say, like, you probably have to get to tier one to make sure you be in combat. But here's the thing, like, these things happen all the time, and you just have to be in the right place at the right time, but you can never predict that. Like, people who were like Green Berets before 9/11 had no idea that they, would probably, especially the guys at fifth group who got to go in and be like horse soldiers and, do some of the coolest stuff that they just, they weren't doing much before that, and they were in the right place at the right time. So my suggestion is, I wouldn't really look to try to find combat, right? Because, like, look, anybody who's actually been to combat isn't really searching for combat, right? It's not what you think it is. It's not glorious. It's not like Hollywood, it's rough. Um, but I would just find something that you want to do professionally. Like, if you want to go soft, like if you want to be, uh, if you want to be like a paramedic, right? Like, the two best jobs in soft for medical skills is either an 18 Delta or a PJ, right? But if you want to get to that highest level and you want to say go to Delta, I would probably recommend going Rangers as like your stepping stone. Do I think what is it, an option 40 nowadays, and then you go do time in Ranger and then go apply it and go to Delta. You know, so yeah, trying to find combat that's hard depending what's going on right now. There's not much going on. WP projection. I bet he's already done by the time he's was 10 more than you'll ever do if you live a few lifetimes. Which one is he? Oh yeah. Yumi, I appreciate you, brother. Joey C is live. Are you Stoic? I'm a Spartan. A Spartan, like fucking Leonidas Spartan, or is something else? Love from Kolkata, India. Any advice for 29 and still failure at everything? Look, especially if you're 29 and you've failed in other things, you've probably learned quite a lot, right? That's what like life is about, is like learning. You'll only continue to be a failure if you don't learn from your failures. Learn from those failures, right? Because everybody who's successful had to fail to get there. So if you've failed quite a bit, that means you just keep going. And then when you finally make those successes, everybody's gonna be like, oh, you're so lucky, you were whatever. You're like, no, dude, I had so many failures for so many years, and I failed at a lot of different things, and every single time I fail, just make sure that you learn from that. And if you do that, then that's going to build, those failures will build towards your success. But only if you learn from those failures, right? If you don't, you're determined to repeat them. In your opinion, has all the SF YouTube drama put future recruits of going to special forces? Probably a little bit. To be honest, if we, at least the SEALs were the ones who had the stigma for with all the drama and everything like that, and then we always kind of like the SF guys probably had a little bit more, as you say, maybe a little bit more mature and weren't really dealing with that. So that's definitely hurt. But I would actually say that if you understand the marketing or the advertising, like the Rangers, like their social media and all the like commercials and everything like they do, and the marketing that they're doing is way better than what the SF guys are doing. So they're kind of like in a hole for a couple different reasons. They're definitely struggling with some recruiting. Zach Jolly, I'm introverted is personally a factor in selection, and how does it affect the team dynamic? I'm introverted. It doesn't really. Like, you can be introverted. To be honest, I'll be completely honest. I think actually extroverts actually get peered out. If I had to guess of a percentage of, if you were to classify an archetype of extrovert and introvert, because the introverts, like, you don't like have to sit there, like you just have to do your job and obviously communicate. Like an extrovert is just somebody who has to like you're not really looking for flashy people, and that's really kind of what extroverts. So if you're an introvert, bro, you got nothing to worry about, man. Trust me. There were a lot of introverts that I met and saw. Do you think stoicism has been co-opted by toxic masculinity? Absolutely not. Because toxic, whatever, well, it depends what you even determine what toxic masculinity is. Because it's one of those terms that's being thrown around like nobody's business for political reasons. It's like the word like fascism. People just keep using it and misusing it, and it's lost really any weight in its meaning. Absolutely, video games brought on depression for me. Yeah, Teos. Hey, Teos, I actually meant to do this. I meant to do this, Teos. I just made you a moderator. I meant to do that before. Appreciate you, brother. Uh, who gave Dexter HGH? That's fine. I never found combat. It found me and wasn't happy about it. Yeah. Um, yeah. Anybody who's actually ever been to combat isn't going to ever look for combat again. You know, trust me on this. RZ, appreciate you. Hola, hermoso. Brian got brown eyes. Shit. It's blue. It's like one of the things I'm proud of. Could you tell us a little something about RRC? I used to do training with them. Um, they're extremely professional, like like Rangers on steroids, if you will, not actual steroids, but like just like the whole next level. Yeah, they're really professional, amazing guys. I was very impressed with the RRC. Sup, Somo from Pakistan, baby. Ninja, hey, thank you for the sub. I really appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Did you play for the NFL? No, bro. I actually played soccer in college. Um, so I was a soccer player. I think my calling probably would have been rugby, but I never played. I never lived anywhere where they played rugby. You have beautiful room, guys. Now I just feel like you're just messing with me. Perfect jawline. I appreciate that, but I'm gonna be honest, and I think I talked about this before. One of the things that actually helped my jawline was actually mouth breathing strips because I didn't realize for a while that I was a mouth breather and I wasn't really breathing in through my nose. And ever since I started that, I've seen pictures. It's definitely helped my neckline and has made my jawline look much better. So if you guys haven't tried it, honestly, I recommend it. Like 30 days, it kind of makes a difference. Stanley McChrystal, no, I was never in that. So that would have been, I think that would be the SIF company if I have your in your order, which is I'm assuming First Battalion, Fifth Alpha Company, which I believe is the SIF company. No, was never there. You look like a PDF file on Chris Hansen's How to Catch a Predator. Yeah. And some of you guys said the weirdest stuff. A cute pumpkin cola hopper. What kind of videos do you make? Well, if you've been to my channel, I basically try to make videos about, the things that I know about. But let's see, I've made videos about how to pass selection, how to pass tier one selections, how to pass tier two selections. I've made videos about National Guard SF and how it's like the hidden gem of the soft community. I've talked about depression. Mainly I think like a lot of my channels, my idea of my videos is I want to give life lessons from the career that I've had, right? And there are the careers that I've had because I've had different jobs within the military. I went from support to operator and then off to warrant officer school, then to become a pilot. And so I've done all these different things. And, I've definitely failed in the process. I've had successes. And there's a lot of things that I've learned that I want to share. And obviously, there's a lot of insular things within the military that people don't really talk about. And I want to talk about the stuff that will help people who are thinking about going down that path. So I'm trying to think of some of the other videos. Oh, I also really am obviously very passionate about fitness and nutrition, especially the fact that I have probably achieved, I'm probably the most in shape, the best shape of my life at 40 years old, almost 41. No, I cute, Q Pumpkin. I appreciate you. So, well, man, you guys just fire off with all these questions. I feel like at least we at the very beginning we did do one email, so we can be proud of that. We did respond to one person. I'm really behind all these emails. Yassine Hassin, hello from Algeria. What's up, brother? Pax dog. All right. While you're doing that, we're gonna answer one more email. We're gonna go crazy. We're gonna do two emails. Um, ooh, we just got an invitation to be on a podcast from a SF YouTuber who runs a certain podcast. I'm not gonna say which one it is, but we just got asked to be on a podcast. That'll be fun. Let's see here. All right, who is next on this email list? All right, so we answered that one. All right. All right. So we got somebody make COVID great again. There honestly, if COVID if COVID happened again, I would definitely do it completely differently. Like I felt like I didn't take advantage of COVID as much as I could have because you think about the situation that we were all in. I think I was actually in a pretty good situation, all things considered. But if I knew that it was going to happen, oh my God, the things we would have done. We did do some really cool things though. I was in a house that lived on a lake, and we like bought one of these giant inflatable boats. I mean, like it was a full like 25-foot boat, like inflatable boat, and we would go out on the lake like every single day. Oh, my house also had a pool too, so that was actually really nice. Cute pumpkin. Maybe Joe Rogan one day he does interesting interviews. Yeah, but I think you got to be. I'll be completely honest. I don't think I'm that interesting of a person. I've done some stuff, but I feel like you have to really have something that Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan is so like, whether you want to admit it or not, that man is really smart and he's just like so interested in so many different things, which is why he's like he invites, like he doesn't invite people because he thinks like, oh, this will be a good show. He just invites people because he wants to know what they know because he's interested, right? And I would probably have to have something that he would be interested in, which, not like trying to like play myself down or anything, but I just don't think that I'm interesting enough to ever be in Joe Rogan. But you never know. I do respect him, just like I really respect Sean Ryan and stuff like that. Would love to see you on a Team House podcast. Well, apparently I am going to be on one here shortly. So, but um, I'm gonna wait till I retire because I'm about to retire in a few months. So, what makes you Stoic Viking? Um, just you know, I've always kind of liked the you know background of like Nordic descent and stuff like that. Always think that type of stuff was cool and interesting, and I've always been told that I look like one. But honestly, one of the things that has always um, really helped me out in life was discovering like the concepts of stoicism. Like probably one of the things that really helped me like in some of the darkest times of my life is really understanding concepts within stoicism. And ever since then I've just been just a huge fan, and it's just always helped me through almost, you can almost apply it in almost every aspect of your life. So when I was trying to come up with a name for this channel, right? I could have used my name, right? But I liked, if you're going to create a brand, why not create something that you like and that you're fun, that you can be proud of? And so that's when I came up with the Stoic Viking. Like also I have other things that are like Viking-ish, I have a company that's named after Vikings. I have a polo brand that's Viking polo. So it's like a whole bunch of things. And so it just seemed like an easy fit. Like my actual Instagram is Viking Hustle. So, you know, take that however you want. I spent the whole COVID year playing Warzone. Yeah. So I probably spent in COVID, the two games that I probably played the most was League of Legends and Escape from Tarkov. Those were the two games I played the most during Tarkov or during COVID. Mike is making. Are you still working? Or are you back in the world? Um, I'm still in the military. If that's what you're asking. So you are next tier one operator. People are very curious and fascinated by you guys, your mindset, your very way of life. Yeah, I think that like I think anybody who's in a profession, that people respect that is a little difficult to get there, you know, I can definitely see why people respect it. Just like I would, for someone who played soccer in college, I definitely really respect like people who make it to like the English Premier League or other European professional leagues. And so you're like, because almost everybody had to work hard. You can't. It's just not just pure talent. It requires like hard work and I think anybody who's in that sort of profession, it's easy to like use them as examples and like, hey, how else are you successful in other aspects of your life? So I can definitely see why people think that as well. Love TJ. Bitches Brew said hi. What's up, Bitches Brew? How you doing? Love the polos. What business are you in? Um, so I'm actually in the process of getting my certifications to become a private wealth advisor. I do a lot of other like, side hustles, if you will. Um, but that's actually something I'm doing because I actually don't want to go into contracting and I actually don't want to do anything I did in the military. And I want to start a new thing that also, it actually, whether you know it or not, it actually will leverage my experience in the military. And I can get into later into why that is. But yeah, so I'm in the process of becoming a private wealth advisor. Yeah. You know what? I should wish I could like design something for this time for this live. For every time you guys say Dexter, I get $1. The Ryan just be a mercenary. Yeah, that's the one thing I want to avoid. Um, I joined in 2005 and then I was deployed in Iraq as early as 2007. And so I was there during the height of the Iraq War, like during the surge. And obviously there were there's Blackwater and all these other companies, all these private military, the PMCs, the private military companies. And a lot of that was going on and people would get out and they go to contract and do like a lot of that has dried up. But I've also, even before it even dried up, I saw what that life was like. And what the reasons why I left the soft community. Um, because don't get me wrong, I loved what I did, but the reasons why I left, I would defeat the purpose by going down essentially the contracting or mercenary route. So that's why I personally don't want to do it because that's not the life I want to live anymore. I want to go on to something that's like, more peaceful, more productive, plus pays more money with less work, right? Plus, I'm 40, I'm about to be 41 years old. I don't know. Look, the stresses that I want to put my body through is in the gym and whether or not what I'm eating, right? And Maybe some cardio, if you know what I mean. Nikhil J, what would you essentially be involved in as a private wealth advisor? So, for anybody who doesn't know, so there's two types of wealth for like brokers, if you will, or financial advisors. You have core wealth and you have private wealth. Core wealth is what majority of people like. If you want a somebody like a stockbroker or something to handle your trades for you or handle your accounts, most people fall within core wealth. If you are a high net worth individual and you have an account, so I think for across the United States, depending where you're at, it could be higher, but the minimum is $5 million. So if you're dealing in private wealth, you're dealing with high wealth over high net worth individuals. Like you're not dealing with someone who's investing 100,000. You're people who's like tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. So these people have money, but because of that, they already have advisors. So when you actually initially get into the hardest part of private wealth advising is actually bringing them to you. Like it's like more of a sales job, especially at the beginning. And you join teams with people who are been doing it for a while. So you're on teams with experienced advisors who actually know they're investing. So it's actually a very dog eat dog world, and it's actually kind of the elite of the financial world, and it's not easy to get into, and it's not easy to succeed. So with my background, I like that. I like that concept that it's hard and it weeds out the weak within the first 2 or 3 years. So, which is one of the reasons why I got kind of by some really close friends who already do it. They're like, hey, we think you would be good at this. Absolutely. So networking is a huge part. So one of the reasons, so the people that kind of got me into it is this family up in Chicago. And originally it was like, oh, I'll go up in Chicago and join their team. But because I actually live in the richest county in the United States, which is Loudoun County in Virginia, and it's horse country. It's like this is like the capital of horse country in this part of the United States. And there's like so much money in this area. And because I play polo, I rub elbows with some very high net worth individuals. So the people up in Chicago who are like, hey, you actually need to stay there because you've been networking with, and that's a big a part of this job is networking with high net worth individuals. And then you basically get them to, you earn their trust and be like, hey, why don't you let me manage your money, right? And then you make 1% off of anything that essentially you make 1% off of their essentially their accounts. So the hardest part is actually getting the accounts in private wealth, and then you basically just make them money you know and so everybody that I know who are private wealth advisors, their work to life balance is like the best of anybody I've ever seen. It's obviously hard work for the first couple of years, but you kind of have to earn your keep. But so that's what I'm essentially working towards. And I get to use essentially my experience, which is mainly my stories of the things that I used to do, as a way to, you know, ingratiate, and build rapport with these high net worth individuals, because that's the type of stuff that apparently they like to hear. And, someone like myself is apparently looked very highly upon in that world. So, and I've had a lot of success just with the high net worth individuals that I play polo with. So, but yeah. All right. So we'll answer a few more questions, and then would your formal education help you in any way in your new role? Yeah. Typically they want people who have a bachelor's degree. I don't have a master's. They would like people with like an MBA or something like that, but it's not required. So right now I'm studying for the Series 66 exam. Um, and yeah, once I pass that, you know, the more certifications that I pass, I'll be much more marketable to all the different teams out there that I'm trying to essentially get onto. So, Teos, I really appreciate you helping out with the channel. Like, it's really hard for me to answer questions and deal with, you know, what the what those people are saying in the chat. So I really appreciate you. Let's see, Rodolfo Ardigan. Wait, what is this channel about? Stoic Viking channel is about, like life. Well, it's about life lessons that I've learned, through my career in the military, and then just also just in life, from anywhere from real estate, investment businesses, and everything like that. And I just want to share my, help people not, help people to avoid pitfalls that I've ran into, and then also the things that I have been successful, explain why those things are successful. And then, I talk about, how to pass tier one and tier two selections, talk about how to find the best job, the hidden gem of the special operation community, which is the National Guard Green Beret, fitness. And then, obviously a big part of it is because, I've been in hyper masculine communities all the way up to the tier one levels, is talking about men's mental health, because that's something that we don't talk about enough. Every single time that I ever encounter people, it's just like, hey, shut up, just suck it up, just do it, right? And then they wonder why there's so many people with so much emotional baggage and have so much, like, PTSD, because they never dealt with it. And talking about the hard truths that nobody wants to talk about, especially in the military, because it's such an esoteric, insular society, that we need to be better about. Just being, us as men need to be better about being honest about what's going on, because when we're honest about what's going on, we can deal with it, right? Because we're always going to have to deal with it. We're always going to have to be better. Like, we always have to just take it day by day. But by avoiding it and not confronting the problem, you're just elongating, like, how long you're gonna have the problem, or you might even make it worse. You studied shamanism? No, I never really studied shamanism, but I have studied other, like, Hinduism and Buddhism, and I really actually like Buddhism. Mind you, I grew up as a devout Roman Catholic, so when my mother passed away when I was 15, who was kind of like the main reason we were going to church anyway, she was the most religious of the family. I sort of went on a spiritual journey to see what was outside of the Catholic community. And then I stumbled across, eventually, like years down the road, Buddhism. And I really like a lot of the tenets and concepts within Buddhism. Like, instead of being born into this world, you're born from it. Like, you're part of that circle of life. When you die, you become, grass, all these different things. There's a lot of things in Buddhism I think are really work as far as a modern day um, teachings that can really help us. And obviously, some of them actually tie really well into Stoicism as well. Shauna, man, I appreciate your voice. I appreciate you. What's something that you learned that you wish you knew in your 20s? Chaotic peace. So I kind of actually covered. So actually, someone actually answered this question earlier, um, which is basically your 20s, especially as a guy. You just need to put your head down and just go to work, right? Just go and do. Don't worry about trying to make a family. Don't worry about trying to get into relationships. All that stuff will happen later in life, because as guys, if there's a sexual marketplace, our lowest in the sexual marketplace is actually in our 20s. But that's actually where we can build, because we have to. So women generally, right? Generally are born with value. Men, we have to attain it, right? In your 20s, that's the time to do it, is work your ass off to attain that value. And also fitness. It is the easiest that will ever be in your 20s to be in shape, because once you're in shape, it's so much easier to maintain it and then build upon it. But if you wait till your 30s and 40s, you're going to make it so much harder. So work your ass off, get in shape. That's, as a guy, that's what you need to do in your 20s. And if you do that, you will build a life in your 30s and 40s that everybody envies and they will dream of. They're like, this guy's so amazing, right? And women will they will flock to you. They will come to you. I'm telling you. Should be very careful to use sunscreen more. I actually do use sunscreen every single day. Would you recommend, Yassine, would you recommend people to get in shape at SF Selection to improve and get the best version of themselves? Or is it unnecessary to go that far? Would you recommend people to get in shape saying get in shape before the SF or get in shape for SF Selection, like before? Or are you saying like wait till you get there? I'm assuming you mean get in shape for it, which I think is a good idea. But if you mean something else, let me know. You are very light skin color. Do you like cologne? Who doesn't like to smell good, bro? Mr. Rodolfo? Norwood Fitness 83. You can get in shape just as fast in your 30s or 40s. That is completely untrue. There's a reason why we are at our physically, our bodies are, you know, we are at our best at our 20s. Yeah, you can get in shape in your 30s and 40s, but trust me, it's much easier in your 20s. And if you think otherwise, like you can like pretty much pull up any sort of study of how the human body actually starts to break down. I think it's like as early as like 21, 22, you start to deteriorate. That's like you look at like professional football players, right? There's a reason why if you're not a quarterback or a kicker or a punter, to find somebody in the NFL who's over the 30s, who's not one of those positions, is very rare. And especially if you're like a running back or something like that, it's because your body starts to deteriorate in your 20s, right? It's just a slow, gradual decline. So, you can get in shape in your 30s and 40s. I'm in the best shape of my life at 40. But if you're not in shape in your 20s, you're screwing yourself over. Stormwald, I started rucking and my hip flexors are sore as fuck. Yeah. So I eventually will do a video about how to get prepared for um, rucking, and hip flexors is a big part of that because you got to think about like the motion of rucking. You move that your hip flexors are like one of the main things that move, and obviously it's constantly moving the entire time. Plus you have weight on it while you're moving. So yeah, like hip flexors is a big part of that. And if you're especially if you're starting up at the beginning, like when you do anything that you haven't done in a while, you're gonna be sore, and your hip flexors are definitely gonna be sore. Dank Hill, what's up, man? How you doing, brother? Sean, do you agree with the idea that in our 20s and we worry about what other things, 30s we don't care about people think, and 40s no one's ever cared? Yeah, I think that's a general, what people do, and I think that's what hold people back. So if you go into your 20s, you know what, that's probably something that I probably should have added to when people are asking, like, do you have any advice for 20s? Because just in general, right? Yeah, you do care because you don't know any better, right? But don't care what people think, right? And this goes back to that thing we were talking about with Chris Williamson about where he's talking about, you know, you're eventually going to die, and in 3 generations, nobody's gonna remember your name. So stop worrying about what people think because nobody even cares. And most people aren't even thinking about what's, past their own nose. So why are you worrying about that? And yeah, it sucks that she takes your 40s, but if you're somebody who understands that in 20s, bro, you're dangerous. You're gonna crush life, right? I definitely worried more about what people thought about me in my 20s than I should have. That's definitely something I'd go back in time. I would worry, like I would be like, because I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks, right? It's one of the reasons why I created this YouTube channel because I don't care, right? Is it completely cringe to do this? Absolutely. I still get the feeling that this is cringe, but I don't care because we're just doing it. But imagine if I felt that way in my 20s. So for you guys who are in your 20s, just don't give a shit. Don't care. As they say, give zero fucks. Because when you give zero fucks, bro, you're dangerous in a good way. Just turned 21. Flavo, just turned 21. You absolutely lose a step after your 20s. Absolutely. It's biology. You like every physical study, you start to deteriorate in your 20s. How's it work? How's it now working out V's in your 20s? How now working V's? Nikhil, what do you mean by V's? Rodolfo, I'm 62. The older you get, the more difficult it to be good fitness. Absolutely. Like it only gets harder, right? But you, if you have a good foundation, like luckily I started working when I was in 20s, right? I was in shape. So one of the reasons why I'm able to be as healthy and as good a shape than I am as 40, where it's as easy as it is because it's did in my 20s. And that's definitely what I recommend to people, you know, and just don't care about what people think. What is the correlation to the decline to the max distance of shooting rope? Dank Hill, you're gonna have to reword that question because to be honest, that didn't make any sense. You see, I mean, get in shape in for it, but not actually try out just to get it to that level and achieve that version of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to you definitely could, but I'm can be completely honest. You definitely want to be in that level of shape, but the thing that you really get out of, and I'll be completely honest with you guys, the experience of going to selection is one of the biggest character building things you can do. Obviously, it's great to be in shape, but if you ever get the chance, I guarantee you, even if you don't even like, for whatever reason, you're a medical drop, and as long as you never quit and you get as far as you can and you just give it your best shot, even if you don't make it, it's still going to be a great character building event of your life. I still think that when I did, when I went to that, um, it was still one of the coolest things I've ever done. Was hard, but still one of the biggest character building things in my life. Shamanism is summoning your ancestors help materialize healing. Would you be interested in that? To be honest, not really. Benjamin Shook depends on the sport. Through, for example, in your ultra marathon, many top athletes in their late 30s. No, look, you can be still an amazing athlete, right? But it is, but I guarantee you, these top athletes didn't start in their 30s, right? They had a foundation early on in their life. Like, show me one top athlete in anything in their 30s, and I guarantee you they didn't start in their 30s. So I think that's the point. You guys are missing the point. This is about when you start, right? You know, if you can start early, you know, start like when you're a kid being in shape and then, you know, build. It's so much you do. But if you don't start, if you're not fit and you're like in your 30s or even worse, your 40s or even later, you're going to really struggle. So if you're not fit in your 20s, and this is the point, right? This is what this whole thing started with. If you're not fit in your 20s, you have no fucking excuse because that's the easiest you'll ever be. And plus, you're no longer a teenager. You're fully grown. You don't have to worry about growth plates or stunning your growth. Get in shape. Because plus, it's your physical resume. Like when people make an impression of you, if you're in shape, people make so many different positive things about you. But if someone walks up and sees that you're not in shape, they're going to immediately make their first impressions of you mostly going to be negative. And it's hard to change people's first impressions. Walter Cronkite. Interesting comment from an interesting name. Sean, bro, you're great. I'm subscribing for sure. It couldn't have been said any better. Kind of like the book, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Absolutely. And I've actually read that book and I appreciate its verses. Okay, so let me go back up to your comment, Nihil. How's it working out now versus in your 20s? Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely harder. Like I'm gonna be honest, I have no cartilage in my right knee. So um let me turn back on the monitors so I get the lighting. Um, like there are certain exercises I can't do because I have no cartilage in my right knee anymore. Like I can't do lunges anymore. It's really hard for me to do single leg Bulgarian squats. So I do other things to work around it. But like when I was in my 20s, like anytime, like your recovery was so much quicker. So I have to work out smarter. Um, you know, I just can't go into the gym and just, I have to be more deliberate about everything. I have a better plan. Luckily, I have so much more knowledge than I did in the 20s, so that helps. But yeah, it's much easier in your 20s. Jonathan Everhart, what's going on, man? What's up, brother? I want to go Stormwall. I want to go SF, but I'm 28 right now. Started training recently. Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you're interested in going down that pipeline, Stormwall, is it Stornwall? Stornwall. I think it's thought I read it as Stormwall. Send me a message, and and also I was going to put up. I was going to add a level. So a lot of people have asked me about selection, prep training, or coaching, and I was going to add that to the tier level or as a part of sort of a paid membership within the thing. Like if you want coaching for going to selection. Um, and also, I do a lot of personal training, and I'm going to create an account or a website that will be linked from this. Like if people want to do like online coaching and stuff, that will be available as much as well. But as you guys know, I try to offer as much as I can for free, but there is at some point there is a time sink. Like I do have to put time towards everything that I'm doing, and if I give everything away for free, especially when I'm individual coaching, I'll never have time to do anything. So I will have to put some sort of monetary value on that to justify the time that I put aside just for that. But that will be something I'm going to add soon. But Stormwald, if you want any help, just send me an email. I heard you can lift more if you don't shoot rope. All right, you guys really need to stop it with the shooting rope stuff. I've been in survival mode the whole year. My pain isn't anything special because I know there's something. So I know there's people who've had it worse and does know better. The fear of failure is my biggest problem. Chaotic piece. Yeah, people are afraid of failure. But when you understand what failure truly is, and failure is the building blocks to success, that you should actually look forward to failure, right? You go and you start doing thing and you're going to fail at it, especially if it's something that's worth doing. You're probably going to fail, but then you fail forward. So try not to be afraid of failure. You need to reframe it to what you understand that failure is, right? Failure is not like you are failure in life. Failure is a building block to success. It is the thing that you step on. It's that ladder. It's the rungs of the ladder towards success in so many different ways. All right, Walter Cronkite, goodbye. That dude was annoying. All right. Yeah, nobody has ever said I look like Ben Stiller. Nikhil J, what technical skills did you work on for your new role in invest? So I started taking courses for my certifications. So I got like those programs where it teaches you everything you need to know for these certifications, and it breaks the lessons down for you. You take the lessons, and after every module you can then take a practice test, and then you get all the way down, and then you'll take like practice tests of that actual certification exam. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of months. So, all right, Mr. Born Free. Look, I'm not an actual like. Uh, you have to understand that the religion that a lot of Danes or what you would refer to as Vikings back then, the Nordic religions. I'm not a religious person, you know. Um, so whether or not my name says Viking in it, and that's a religion that they practice. I don't really believe in the institutions of religion. So, I'm agnostic, you know. There could be something, I don't know, but I put more of my faith into science and into the things that, you know, that type of stuff. So, yeah. I'm sorry you're disappointed that because my name is Viking and I don't believe in shamanism. Sorry to disappoint, brother. Sugar White, thanks for doing those. You have to lose to know how to win. Absolutely, Sir G. Howdy, the Stoic Viking. What's up, Howdy? All right. Look, another Dexter comment. Veritas Magna, absolutely. I heard that as well. Ninja, I love that. Fail forward. That's what people need to hear. We cannot expect success without failure. Failure makes a win to feel. Failure makes a win feel that much better. Absolutely. Strongbald, how important is the ASVAB score? So I think to get any job, I think including SF, you need 100 in the ASVAB, right? But if you're close, they can give like waivers. But typically, the goal ASVAB score that you want to get to basically have any job, I believe, is 100. Because if you're below, like that's what qualifies like whether or not jobs are open. But I think if you get 100, you you can have any job in the military. Biscuit Crusader. Yeah, there's just weird people. I don't know. It's the internet, so there's just weird people. Thank you, Nikhil. Appreciate you. Thank you for asking a legitimate question and not being weird by some of these people in here. Our boy Tejas is on he's working overtime tonight. I should probably pay him for how much he's had to moderate this chat today. So, wait, which certifications are you taking? So I did what is it? I always get it backwards. Is it either SEI or SIE? I think it's SIE. Yeah, I did the SIE exam, and now I'm studying for the Series 66 exam. So those are the certifications I'm working towards. Yeah, howdy. Like some of these people, it's whatever. Ryle Tracy, what's up, man? Howdy, have you researched Great Tartary? What is Tartary? Tartary is a vast part of Asia bounded by the Caspian Sea, the Ural Mountains, Pacific Oceans, and the northern borders of China, India, and Persia. Sugar White, do you believe in a macro-based diet for the best way to get in shape? So it depends what your goals are, right? Do you want to, so if you want to change your weight, right? It's calories. But if you want to change what your body looks like, then that's where your macros come in. That's where your protein is, and that's going to change what the body composition looks like. So if you want to lose weight and then build muscle and and to replace that, you need to do both. You need to be in a calorie deficit, but then you also need to, be you need to be on your macros as well. Most importantly, protein. But like, and those other ones obviously have the very things that you need to do, and you need to hit certain things in order to, hit your macros, hit your micros, and stuff like that. But it all depends exactly what your goals are. So if it's to lose weight, it's calories. If it's to build that muscle in its place, it's definitely macros. Half walk, half man. A society can achieve greatness when greatness of elders are willing to plant trees under the shade of which they will never live long enough to sit. Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I've heard before, and I really like, about you planting trees that you'll never enjoy the shade, and I think that's a big part of it, right? When you learn stuff in life, you need to pass it on, and that's what I want to do. I want to like, obviously I'm still in a quest to always be constantly learning things, but I want to, what knowledge I have acquired, I want to pass that on, and that's like the main reason I started doing this channel, anyways. Faith-based and science is still faith. So mind you, Michael Joe Clark, I never said I didn't have faith, right? I At least I don't think I did. So usually when I talk about this and I talk about being agnostic, I actually do think that you should have faith in something, whatever it may be. Have faith in something, because I feel like that's a way to ground yourself into something, right? But I just don't put stock into the institution of religion. She go, I started to hear about your dog. Yeah, but she has a chance. She has a chance because the lymphoma has not gone in her organs, so she's actually a good candidate for chemo. So we have a good chance of putting in remission, because apparently chemo responds, actually does pretty well against lymphoma. Are you a Viking because I'm watching your YouTube channel? Uh, William, I'm a Viking because I said so, right? Is that the answer we're looking for? I don't know. It's just a name that I came up with that I like. Why is the dog in the background keep barking so loud? Some I don't even know why I read some of these fucking comments. You were considering SFD at some point, or were you aiming for ISA all the way? There was a lot going on in the late 2000s, and there was very little known about those two units. And I just went off of the information that I had at the time. Would I have done it differently? What I know now? Probably. But it was definitely an option. Um, there's various different reasons why I chose the route that I did. But I did it off the information that I knew at the time, which was, there was very little information at that time. But I'll go into detail of that another time. Sugar White, how do you prep for a big exam certification? Going through this one similar. Like, everybody's different how they prep for exams. I personally have to. I have like ADHD, so I have to like sit myself down and do the work, but I have to put like a timer that I do not look up from doing what I'm doing. Like, I have to set across time. I'm like, hey, I'm only doing this for this amount of time, and then I will work schedule in like breaks, and I'll have a little timer that like shows like how long I need to be just head down just doing the studying, and then when the timer goes off, I can get up, go do something for like 10, 15 minutes, and then I come back. So that's how it works effectively for me. But yeah, like studying the material and then doing practice exams. I'm big on just doing practice exams and just repetition, repetition. What are these tests you took are for? It's for becoming a private wealth advisor. Born free. There's no harm in learning shamanism if you don't believe. Some have 2 HBs, 25 minutes, public knowledge. I could teach you. No, I'm not against any learning anything. I actually think that there are some fascinating things that I've heard about shamanism and other different things. Like, I feel like you should actually dive into every religion that there is, just to kind of like get a quick understanding. And because there's a lot of things you can learn. I've learned things from Catholics. I've learned things from Islam. I've learned things from Hinduism. I've learned a lot of things from Buddhism. So I'm not opposed to it. you know. By the way, so you stream every Sunday? Yes. So we, I forget one of my subscribers referred to it as Stoic Sundays, so I kind of like that. Um, But yeah, so every Sunday night, unless something comes up, I'm going to stream every Sunday. I'm going to try to make it 8 p.m. tonight. I got kind of backed up because of this whole weekend kind of got screwed up because my dog got diagnosed with lymphoma. Um, do you believe in regret? Um, you shouldn't. As a human being, I think we all suffer from regret, whether you want to or not. But but once it regret is going to creep into your mind, right? A lot of emotions are going to creep into your mind because that's just the way your mind works, right? It's do you have the ability to then change your mindset or change your mental frame or get that like thing and just change it like, hey, okay, I could sit here and figure what I didn't do. Or I can be like, hey, that's in the past. There's nothing I can do about it now. Learn from it, and now let's just concentrate on the here and now, and that's what you do. And I remember there's an amazing quote by Anthony Hopkins. There's this interview where he specifically talks about regret, and because he talks about he actually regrets nothing. And there's an amazing thing. So if you guys ever look up Anthony Hopkins and regret, and he talks about this specific thing. And I think he's probably one of the best I've ever heard on the specific topic. It is a choice, right? You have a choice to not regret. You can learn from it and push the line, but it's in the past. There's nothing you can do about it. And then I know that's harder said than done because even I struggle with that sometimes. But then when you have to then go back to these tenets, like these principles of like why you're doing what you're doing, and be like, hey, I'm not look because you go down a rabbit hole with that type of stuff. Think about it, understand what happened, put in the past, don't forget it, but don't dwell on it. Move on. Day by day, do every day, do something to be 1% better. Ninja, I'm currently working to change my career, but I'm worried about losing health care for my wife. What can someone expect with this kind of change? Um, I think that you can actually buy like healthcare outside of your companies. Like, is that how where you're getting healthcare is from your actual company, or you can pay for it outside of your actual work? So, I would just make sure that you have an income stream that to support you while you're changing careers. But if you definitely want to change careers, definitely do it. But obviously, make sure that you have health insurance is definitely a big one. But if you're getting it through your company, you can definitely pay for it from an individual provider. Barrett's is mine. I repeat mantras. I find it keeps me focused and can't afford to dip into the bowels of burlesque burlesquity. Everything else comes natural after that for me. I absolutely agree. I do the same thing. So you guys will see on this channel, I post like clips from like inspirational videos. That's sort of like my mantras, right? I have a whole thing on my like Instagram and other different accounts where I've saved all these different like when these videos I find these videos that are sort of like my mantras. I save them, and then when I'm having a hard day, I go through the whole list and I listen to them. So like when I post these videos of like the one I posted today was of Jocko talking about how discipline over motivation because motivation is just feeling and it's fleeting. Like those are one of the things that I like. So anytime I find these videos and I post them, like these are the things that inspire me. These are my mantras that help me through the day, and that's why I share them. That's why I post them. Afrovius, hi. What's up, brother? Christopher Cruz, what's going on? Afrovius, go Valhalla. Skull, brothers. Skull. Thanks. Talk about your father. My father was a colonel in the military. He was a great man. I really looked up to him, and there's a lot of things that I would say that some of the best parts about me is things that I learned from my father. Unfortunately, my father died a number of years ago. Have you followed any of the allegations about the anti-hero podcast, or you not care about any of the bad bro drama? No, I've definitely followed some of it. I've definitely followed, like, I think Valhalla BFT and the ones that he's done. But to be honest, I really never even followed any soft influencers because I just don't really care, to be completely honest. Just be authentic, just be yourself. It's really not that hard. Plus, I don't want to be like, I don't want to do any gun stuff. I'm not going to be in the gun tube spaces. I don't really care about that type of stuff. I don't want to share war stories. So, to be honest, I'm probably not really intersecting with a lot of what those guys do, anyways. So, I just don't really care. Do you think the stock market is going to crash anytime soon? I don't think so, but who knows? Do you like mixed dicks in my boot? I'll be honest, I don't even know who dicks in my boot is. Let's look up who dicks in my boot is. Yeah, I have no idea who this person is. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to read to this thing like gets scrolled up and I lost my place. Do you think Trump's going to end the government shutdown? Well, the government shutdown is not necessarily, it's up to Trump. It's up to Congress. So they have to come to an agreement. What is the best finance investment book you've read? Probably, there's a lot of really good ones. I really liked Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's a really good book. Um, oh, you know what? I think I'm forgetting another one. What do you think? There's another one that I think is really good. Just give me a second. Oh, this The Psychology of Money is also a really good book. If you haven't read that, that's definitely a good one. That and Rich Dad Poor Dad. Good morning. If I knew how to spell and sound out that, I would, but who has all three branches of governments? Mad Money by Jim Cramer. I have not read that one, but I've heard that one was good. I actually really enjoyed Chaotic Peace. Alan Watts and Jim Rohn changed my perspective on life experiences. I tend to overthink and try to predict things that are out of control. Chaotic Peace. I actually really like that because that's actually how I started learning about Buddhism, is actually from Alan Watts. So if anybody doesn't really know who Alan Watts is, a very interesting person. I think he was a Episcopal priest from like 1945 to like 1950, and he left the priesthood and he went on this like journey to like learn other religions, and he went to the east and he became an expert in Hinduism and Buddhism, and then he came back and he became a professor at Oxford, and he basically taught a course on understanding Eastern religions for the Western like community. And still to this day, like they were like, I think he died in the 70s, but his like lectures, he's an amazing orator and he was an amazing professor. And then when he would teach, like still to this day, they have, even though like they recorded his lectures like in the 60s and 70s, they will put those to like epic music. And it's actually a lot of fun to listen. Like if you have not actually listened to like Alan Watts's lectures, they're amazing. And like he what was that? I can't remember what the name of the book was. I read the book as well. So I'm a big fan of Alan Watts. Because he kind of what led me into learning about Buddhism, which I really appreciated. Cool, Spidey. Can you say happy birthday, Jug Jug? Happy birthday, Jug Jug. Chaotic Peace, absolutely. One of my favorite ones is oh, my favorite one to listen to. All right, if you guys not listen to this, my favorite one to find on YouTube that's like Alan Watts to like epic music. Let me find this real quick. Now I'm determined. Alan Watts, The Real You. You know what? I might play it for you guys right now. Wait, you know what? Can I look? I've never done this. How do I do screen share? Hmm. Let me see if I can turn this up. No. I need to learn how to do this stuff where I can like share my screen and stuff like that. Huh. Yeah. The Real You by Alan Watts. Trust me. It's it talks it, like it's only like a 4 minute video. Love the music that they put with it. Um yeah, Alan Watts, amazing. If you guys haven't listened to him. So all right, I think we are just over 2 hours. I think we're gonna call it quits because I gotta get up in the morning and I gotta go do stuff. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you for everybody for showing up, for asking questions. Tejas, thank you for helping to moderate. I appreciate you, brother. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Appreciate you.